You noticed something shifting. It didn't happen all at once. It didn't come with noise, more like a quiet drift. Some things that used to make sense just don't quite fit anymore. Most people call this awakening, but that word puts unnecessary weight on what's happening, like something arrived, like something got activated, like something chose you. None of that happened. What happened is much simpler. Your attention shifted. And noticing is not the same thing as awakening. Awakening assumes there's a before and after, the idea of one single moment when everything changed. But awareness doesn't work that way. Awareness doesn't arrive. It's always been there. You just weren't looking for a while. Remember the last time you walked into a room and suddenly noticed the hum of the refrigerator? That sound was always there. It wasn't a hearing problem. Your attention just wasn't on it. The moment you noticed, nothing about the sound changed. The only thing that changed was your attention. That's exactly what awareness is. Awakening wants an event with noise. Awareness is simply where your focus lands. A lot of spiritual content tells you that you've been activated, implies you're part of a minority, that something found you from the outside. But this language quietly builds an identity, and identity creates dependency. They make you feel special. They convince you that you've been chosen, and at some point you believe it, because that feeling is appealing, feeling important is comforting. But that comfort moves your attention back outside. You start seeking approval. You want to be defined within a group. This is exactly where this channel stands differently, before adding anything to seeing what's already there. Because quantum code isn't about being chosen, it's about noticing. And this noticing doesn't come with a big event, like most people think. It doesn't give you identity, doesn't offer titles, doesn't make you belong somewhere. Because awareness doesn't add identity. It dissolves identity. And that's exactly what we think awareness is, gets handled from the wrong place in most narratives. Because if you frame it as an achievement, you've already missed it. Awareness doesn't work that way. Awareness doesn't give identity, it gives recognition. It's like something that was already inside you, becoming visible. Nothing new gets added. You look again at something you thought you'd forgotten. But even that's not quite the right word, because you never actually forgot. You just weren't looking for a while. Most people see awakening as an achievement, a grace, a privilege of sorts. But awareness doesn't fit that frame. Awareness is your most natural state. It's just been buried under noise for a long time. And that noise doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside, from your thoughts, your beliefs, the stories you tell yourself. Most of these stories aren't even yours. They were inherited from your family, your culture, the society you live in. And over time, you start thinking they're real because they've always been there. But something appearing real doesn't mean it's true. Awareness is when you start noticing that these stories are just stories. You don't reject them. You don't fight them. You just see them as they are. And once you see them, you can't hold on to them the same way. Because now there's distance between your thought and the thing watching that thought. And that distance is freedom. There's no single event called awakening. There's only the shift in where your attention settles. And that shift happens quietly, without fanfare. It doesn't create a dramatic scene, but it's permanent. Most people turn awakening into a goal that needs to be reached, a place to get to, a state to be won. But awareness isn't a goal. Awareness is only something happening right now. Either you're aware right now, or you're not. There's no moment called "I'll be aware tomorrow." Tomorrow is just another now, and in that now, either you're aware or you're not. That's why awareness doesn't need a practice, because practicing assumes awareness isn't here yet. But awareness is already here. The only thing you need to do is notice. And noticing doesn't require effort. It just requires attention. Attention and effort are not the same thing. Effort is the mind pushing itself toward a goal. Attention is stopping and looking as it is. Effort is always future-focused. Attention only concerns itself with now. Effort exhausts, narrows. Attention expands and rests. Right now, you're breathing. You don't need any effort to notice that. You just need to place your attention there. When you watch your breath, nothing about the breath changes. The breath continues the same way, whether you interfere or not. But your position changes, because now you're not the doer, you're the observer. You're not on autopilot anymore. And that's exactly what awareness is, being the observer. Not the one reacting, but the one watching what's happening. Being aware of your thoughts, your emotions, and everything passing through your body, but not identifying with any of them. Most people think they are what they're thinking. When they feel anger, they define themselves as an angry person. When sadness comes, they think they're a sad person. But when awareness kicks in, you see this clearly. You are not the anger. You're the thing watching the anger emerge. You're not the sadness. You're the space that sadness passes through. Before we keep watching, stop for a moment. Is what's passing through you right now really you, or just something passing through? This difference seems small, but it changes everything. Because you don't have to be a prisoner of your emotions anymore. You feel them, but they don't define you. They come, they go, but you remain. Awakening language blows this experience out of proportion. Enlightenment, ascension, codes, frequencies. But these words move attention back outside again. You wait for something to come from the outside again. But awareness is inside. It was already there. You just weren't noticing for a while. Maybe right now, there's a quiet recognition inside you. A yes, this feeling. You didn't force that feeling. It emerged on its own. That's exactly how awareness works. You don't force it. You just allow it. And when you allow it, what's already there shows itself. Now stop for a moment. Don't think. Don't try to analyze. Just let yourself notice. Notice that you exist right now. Notice that you're sitting. Notice that you're reading. Notice that you're breathing. None of this is special. It's ordinary. But right in this ordinariness, awareness exists. Because awareness isn't something extraordinary. It's ordinary. It just gets overlooked. And because it gets overlooked, people forget it's valuable. Most people wait for the next big experience, the next insight, the next synchronicity. But while waiting, they miss the now. And now is the only place where everything actually happens. The past is a thought. The future is imagination. Only now is real. Awareness doesn't give you new power. It makes the power you already have visible. This power isn't outward-facing. It's not control power. It's inward-facing power. The power of calm, the power of clarity, the power of being. The search for awakening never ends, because awakening gets positioned as a goal. But awareness isn't a goal. It's a state. And this state is accessible now, not tomorrow, not later, now. If you're encountering resistance inside right now, that's normal. The ego perceives simplicity as a threat because the ego lives in complexity. The ego tells stories, creates identities, makes distinctions. But awareness doesn't require any of that. It only requires being, and being is much simpler than you think. If you notice something here, it's not because I told you about it. If you noticed, it was already inside you. I just directed your attention there, and when you turned your attention, you saw. It's that simple. Now a small observation. If these words stirred an echo inside you, that echo belongs to you. It doesn't come from me. It comes from you. I'm just holding up a mirror. What you see was always there. People think of awareness as a destination. But awareness isn't even a journey, because a journey requires going from here to there. Awareness is already being here. You don't move, you just notice where you are. This ordinariness creates disappointment for most people, because most people expect a big experience, lights, sounds, visions, cosmic revelations. But none of that is awareness. Those are experiences, and experiences come and go. But awareness stays. Experiences change, moods change, thoughts change. But the thing that's aware doesn't change. You don't change either. Everything passing through changes, but you always stay the same. This you isn't your personality. You're not your name. You're not your past. You're the thing watching all of it. And this observer is silent. doesn't comment, doesn't judge, just watches. And when you watch, everything appears as it is. You don't add, you don't subtract, you just see. Most people are afraid of really seeing because seeing tears down the illusions they've built. And people are attached to their illusions because illusions make them feel safe, give them a sense of control. But control is a delusion, and maintaining that delusion consumes massive amounts of energy. When awareness settles in, that energy gets released because you stop trying to control. You start allowing flow, and flow is much more powerful than resistance. Resistance divides your energy. Flow unifies your energy. Unified energy creates a calm but determined state of power. You don't fight, but you don't back down either. You don't push, but you don't freeze. You just move, naturally, without effort. You don't force this movement. It happens on its own, because you're now in alignment with your own nature, and your nature doesn't force. It grows, it develops, it opens. Most people resist this opening, because opening seems like being defenseless at first. But being defenseless isn't the same as being powerless. It's openness, and openness allows change. Being closed blocks change. Change is inevitable. Life is change. Breath is change. Heartbeat is change. If you resist, pain emerges. If you allow, everything flows. Awareness sees this flow as it is, doesn't try to stop it, doesn't try to direct it, just watches. And when you watch, you notice the flow has its own intelligence. Without your interference, everything falls into place. This trust doesn't come from mental logic. It comes from experience. Once you truly notice, you can't forget. Maybe you'll go back on autopilot, but now you know, and knowing changes everything. Knowing isn't the same as believing. Believing is in the mind. Knowing is directly in your being. When you know something, you don't need to trust it because you're already there. Awareness is this state of being there. Now, here, completely. Not in the past, not in the future, not inside imagination, not inside thought, just here. And being here doesn't mean doing nothing. On the contrary, the most effective action comes from here, because this action happens without the ego's agenda. It's clean action, pure expression. This expression isn't for impressing others, not for getting approval. It's for being yourself. And when you're yourself, the world reorganizes around you. You don't need to force it. Most people do this backward. They want the world to organize around them, but the world doesn't work that way. The world responds to the frequency you are, and your frequency comes from who you are, not who you're trying to be. Knowing who you are comes from awareness, because awareness peels away layers. You can't lie to awareness. You can't fool yourself. You just see. And what you see is sometimes unsettling, sometimes comforting, but always real. And real always liberates, but lies imprison. Illusion can be comfortable, but it can't last forever. Eventually it collapses. And when it collapses, you either wake up or you build another illusion. Most people choose the second option because waking up means entering the unknown, and the unknown seems scary. But the unknown is also freedom, because the known exists within limits. The unknown is limitless. Awareness teaches you to be comfortable with the unknown. You stop trying to control. You stop trying to know. You just stay open. And when you stay open, life surprises you, expands you, transforms you. But transformation doesn't mean giving up being you. It means giving up trying to be someone you're not. And this letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. Maybe as you're reading this right now, a quiet space formed inside you. Maybe a relaxation, maybe a sense of recognition. This quiet space is awareness's voice. It's beyond words, beyond concepts. If you pay attention to this quiet space, you'll notice it expanding. You'll notice it spreading. But you're not doing anything. It's happening on its own. Because awareness has its own natural dynamic. You just allow it. And allowing doesn't mean being passive. On the contrary, it's the most active state because there's no resistance, no friction, just flow. In this flow, questions decrease, answers lose their importance. Because in awareness, there's no need for questions. Everything shows itself, in time, naturally. And this naturalness is much more powerful than forced spiritual effort, because it's real, not imitation. Most spiritual content unknowingly teaches imitation. Act enlightened, appear peaceful, be positive. But all of that is superficial because it doesn't come from inside. It's imposed from outside. Awareness comes from inside. Nobody tells you what to do. You see it within yourself, and when you see it, you don't have to do it. It happens naturally. This naturalness isn't effortlessness. It's unforced action. And that's the most powerful action, because behind it is the power of your entire being, not just your mind's power. The mind can plan, can develop strategies, but the mind can't see the whole. It only sees pieces. Awareness sees the whole, and when you move from the whole, the pieces naturally fall into alignment. This alignment isn't created through control. It emerges through letting go. And letting go is the hardest thing for the ego, because the ego exists through control. But awareness is beyond the ego. The ego doesn't disappear, but it no longer gives the commands. Awareness takes command, and when awareness is in command, the ego is just a tool, not the master. This transformation doesn't happen through fighting. It happens through acceptance. You don't reject the ego. You clearly see its function. And when you see its function, you give it the right place. But you don't give it control. Control is in your mind, power is in your awareness, and awareness is always here. Now, in this moment, there's no awareness in the past, because the past is only a memory. There's no awareness in the future either, because the future is imagination. Awareness only exists now, and now is the only real moment. Everything else is in your mind. Let's continue from here. Maybe you've noticed none of what I've said added anything new to you, because there's nothing to add. It just reminded you what was already there. And remembering isn't learning, it's recognizing. Recognition is different from knowledge. Knowledge is in the mind. Recognition is instinctive. When you know something, you believe it. When you recognize something, you feel it. Is awareness a feeling? No, but it can be felt. Is it a thought? No, but thoughts pass through it. So what is it? It's the observer. It's the field. It's the space. But it's not empty. Full, but not condensed. Silent, but alive. These descriptions are inadequate because awareness can't be defined. It can only be lived. And when you live it, you don't need to define it. Most people try to understand instead of living. Understanding feels safe, but living requires accepting, not understanding too. And this acceptance isn't ignorance, it's wisdom. The wise person isn't someone who knows everything. It's someone who knows that everything can't be known. And this knowledge frees them because there's no longer pressure to know, only the flow of being. Awareness is in this flow, doesn't stop, doesn't freeze, always in motion, but going nowhere because it's already everywhere. Right now, while you're reading, are you breathing? Yes. Are you doing it? No. It's happening on its own, and you're just watching. That's awareness. Your heart is beating. Are you making it beat? No, it's beating, and you're aware. This being aware is your true nature. Everything is happening. You're watching, and as you watch, something changes. What changes? Your relationship with yourself. Most people see themselves as the doer, but you're not the doer. You're the watcher. The doer is the body, the mind, but you're something beyond these. This beyond isn't something mystical. It's a simple fact. You're more than your body, because even if your body died, you're the awareness that exists right now. And awareness doesn't die. It changes form. Awareness opens you to love because you stop fighting. And when the fight ends, love remains. Because love is the natural state. Hate is learned. What's learned can be unlearned. But what's natural never disappears. It just gets hidden. And awareness lifts that veil. When the veil lifts, you see this. Everything was already on track. Nothing was wrong. Your perspective was just narrow. And when your perspective changes, the world seems changed. Actually, the world doesn't change. Your perception changes. But since your perception is your world, the world appears changed. Is this an illusion? No. Reality is perspectival, and perspective changes with awareness. Now ask yourself again, who am I? Your body? Your thought? Your past? Your future? None of them. You're the awareness that encompasses all of these, and this awareness is limitless, timeless, deathless. These words might sound big, but they're true. You're bigger than you think. You just forgot. And having forgotten isn't a problem. Remembering is enough. And right now, you're remembering. Maybe not completely, but there's a trace, an echo, a recognition. Follow that recognition. Don't force it. Just pay attention. And when you pay attention, it deepens. As it deepens, everything becomes clearer. Your life's meaning becomes clearer. Your purpose becomes clearer. You become clearer. But this clarity isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because awareness isn't an ending, it's a path, an endless path. And you're not alone on this path. Everyone who's aware is on this path. You're connected to them through an invisible bond. Because awareness isn't individual, it's universal. As you become aware, collective awareness rises because we're all connected. Everything you see is a reflection of you. And in this reflection, you recognize yourself. You see yourself in others. And this seeing is empathy, compassion, love. Awareness doesn't just connect you to yourself. It connects you to everyone, to everything. Because separation is an illusion. In reality, we're all one, different forms, but the same essence. And that essence is awareness. Now we've come to the end of these words. But this isn't an ending, because when you stop watching, life begins. Application isn't practice, it's life. Every moment, an opportunity to be aware, to be now, to be, and when you are, everything falls into place because you start being where you belong, not chosen, aware.